Howdy guys, this is Echo65, and in this video series I will be teaching you how to be the master of all things Javelin in Modern Warfare 3. That way you feel a little bit more like this guy, and not so much like this guy. Sad. So before we get into the weapon itself and firing it, and successfully not blowing yourself up, I wanted to quickly go over the perks that best complement using the Javelin. First off, Quick Draw. The Javelin in Modern Warfare 3 has one of the slowest aim-down sight times in the game, but Quick Draw is not quite a necessity, though it does help in reducing that, but, you know, considering you only have one round, that aim-down sight time is only one time you're going to be doing that per life, so it's not quite necessary, but Quick Draw will help you get that missile out a little bit faster and leave you vulnerable for a little bit less time, though, as I said, you're only going to be using this, for the most part, one time per life, so take that into consideration when you are selecting your perks. Speaking of safety and reducing your vulnerability while using the Javelin, in addition to its long ADS time and lock time, the Javelin has a very slow switch time. Like, from your primary to the Javelin, it's just over a second, which doesn't sound much like when I'm talking right now, like boom, a second just went by, but in game time it's a very large amount of time. So Sleight Hand Pro will definitely help, as it will roughly half the time that you are switching to and from the Javelin, and, you know, for the most part you're going to be using the Javelin from the safety, you know, of an area filled with friendlies or your spawn, but that does not necessarily mean that there's not going to be enemies nearby. I've had plenty of times where I start the lock with the Javelin, I hear an enemy next to me, I have to quickly switch back to my primary to engage him, and I probably would have just been dropped if I had not had Sleight of Hand Pro. That being said, it is not a necessity, but it will help you in the long run, and not looking like a dummy and getting dropped while holding the Javelin. Alternatively, if you also plan on using the Javelin to shoot down enemy kill streaks, Blind Eye Pro will reduce the time it takes to lock on to enemy helicopters and enemy UAVs, but you have to keep in mind that the Blind Eye Pro bonus does not apply when you are locking on to location-based targets, like, you know, ground, walls, whatever. It does not apply there. And you have to also keep in mind that the Javelin uses a top attack style, so it's going to shoot up into the sky, and it's going to come down on its targets, so it's going to take a lot more time to get to its targets than the small or the Stinger missile, so it's going to take a little bit longer to get there. Lastly, we have what I consider to be the most important perk while using the Javelin, which is Stalker. You'll notice if you are using the Javelin and aiming down sight without Stalker, and you try to move around it all, you'll notice that you move at about the pace of a snail giving an elephant a piggyback ride. You are as slow as possible as you could be, which makes you pretty susceptible to fire. So with Stalker on, not only can you move around a little bit easier while aiming and attaining a lock, you can dodge some bullets Matrix style, or you can get yourself to cover while holding on to the lock. But in addition to that, there's a lot of advanced Javelin spots and strategies that involve getting a lock in one location where you cannot fire it, because if you fire it, you're going to blow yourself up. But if you hold the lock and you strafe and you move away from it while holding it using Stalker, you can quickly move to a position where you can fire it. So it's pretty useful, and it's definitely a must if you want to get the most out of the Javelin. So now on to the missile itself. The Javelin missile has the highest damage and largest blast radius of any equipable weapon in the game. It's only beaten by the Predator missile and the 105 howitzer round from the AC-130 in its devastation that it causes. It has a base damage of 300, which is enough to kill any normal enemy soldier standing next to the epicenter of the blast 3 times over. The red and yellow circles on screen now indicate the range of the Javelin missile, with the red circle being the kill radius and the yellow circle being where you're going to just get a hit marker. Though it is important to note that there is not very many instances and locations in the maps of this game where you're going to find such a large open space like this. So you're going to have to keep in mind any objects or obstructions in your target area. It's also important to note that any player behind the double-decker bus or underground down the stairs is going to be protected from the blast. Now I realize that putting down a couple of circles in an overhead view makes the Javelin missile blast seem very much like a two-dimensional thing, but it's really not the case. It's a little bit more complicated than that. As you can see on screen now, when the Javelin missile hits, it's going to reflect off of whatever surface it impacts and form a half-sphere or semi-spherical explosion. And since the player here is prone underneath the impact and resulting explosion, he gets to walk away completely unscathed from the missile. It was a nice fireworks show, but did nothing to him. Keeping this in mind will greatly influence your success or failure when choosing non-ground targets such as objects or walls. Lastly, I wanted to talk about firing and locking with the Javelin. As seen here, it takes quite a bit of clearance before the Javelin missile begins its vertical takeoff, roughly about 2 times the length of this car. So you always want to be aware of your surroundings, any obstacles or friendlies or enemies around you.
Hey, bro, can you, please, maybe get out of the way? Yeah, please, I'm trying to fire the Javelin.
What you say?
Once you obtain a lock with the Javelin, you will be able to hold that lock as long as you keep it within the center of the viewing window of the Javelin. You'll be able to move your aim roughly all the way until the target is to the bottom and the top of the viewing window, or about 2/3 to the left and the right. So as long as you keep your target lock centered, you will be able to move around while still holding the lock, as long as you are holding down the trigger if necessary to move to a safer position to fire the missile. A useful technique when locking onto faraway objects is to jump after you obtain a lock with the Javelin. You will notice if you jump after you get the lock that the crosshairs of the Javelin will remain on what you are targeting and not the objects around it. 2 final notes about locking. The first being that once the lock begins and you hear the first beep and the crosshairs appear, the lock will not break until you aim too far from target or you release the trigger. So once it begins and you hear the beep, you are free to move around and relocate as needed. And the second note being that you can obtain a lock with the Javelin while jumping in midair. You might have to jump a couple of times in order to get it, but it is possible. One final note about the Javelin before I go is that it is not without its weaknesses. In addition to its slow ready speed and slow lock time and aim time, it is also susceptible to EMP and EMP grenades. Regardless of whether or not you are Assassin, you will not be able to use it while under the effects of EMP. And in addition to that, any player with a trophy system as their tactical grenade will be able to completely nullify and destroy your Javelin missile before it even hits the ground. So keep an ear out, and if you hear the Javelin missile come down but not explode, it is likely due to a trophy system. So, in conclusion, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. In the near future, I will be posting map-by-map video guides on the best Javelin spots in the game, which I guarantee you will get you some Javelin quads. So be sure to drop a like and subscribe, or else I'll drop a Javelin on your head. Bye-bye.